So, hi everyone, I'm Aïda Elamrani. I will be talking about the extent to which machines are conscious. So I'm at Institut Jean Nicot, ENS in Paris, and I'm currently involved in the Astound project, where we are trying to implement Michael Graziano's attention schema theory in conversational agent. So this work is funded by the European Union. A simple answer to the question would be that machines are conscious to the fullest extent insofar as we are natural machines, although some people would probably disagree with that claim. But obviously what we're interested with here is artifacts. Is it possible to build, to engineer artificially conscious machines? Do current electronic devices possess a form of consciousness, like computers or phones? So this is historically a controversial question. Experts in the field have never really agreed on this since the beginning of AI, even before that. And one of the reasons why they disagree is because it's an interdisciplinary field. So it involves knowledge in philosophy, in mathematics, computer science, neuroscience, physics, and no one can expect a single individual today to understand all of that. It's very difficult to have conversations about this because we tend to use different terminologies, and also our scientific background will bias the way we approach or understand consciousness. But obviously the main reason why experts disagree is the mind-body problem, which is one of the oldest philosophical problems. And so we've been disagreeing on this one for millennia, but we have made some progress over time. Mainly, we have better words now to approach the problem. We are more precise. And a huge division that we can make in the different interpretations of the mind-body problem is obviously the distinction between phenomenal approaches and physicalist approaches. So basically, a phenomenalist approach will say that phenomenal experience matters, or that it's non-physical and that it's not reducible to physical processes or properties. A phenomenal approach will argue that qualia are real and that they belong in our ontology. On the other hand, physicalist approaches will advocate that phenomenal experience doesn't matter. They will say that everything is reducible to physical processes or properties. Or they will argue that qualia are illusions. Obviously, I am not saying that these are two distinct theories that currently exist and are agreed on. This is just like an overview and a distinction that has a distinction among existing theories, which are very, very nuanced. It is a distinction that is relevant to the problem of artificial consciousness. Mainly, what I'm introducing is obviously the hard problem. If we believe in the hard problem, like when we endorse a phenomenal stance on the mind-body problem, then we believe that the hard problem is valid. We believe that there is an explanatory gap, and then if we want to engineer artificial consciousness, it means that we need to solve the hard problem. Whereas if we're physicalists, then in a way, it is trivial to build artificial consciousness because we only have to solve the easy problem of consciousness, which is not that easy, right? It's a very tricky engineering problem, but still, there's better hope. At any rate, over the past 30 years, we've seen many scientific theories of consciousness emerge. So Anil Seth, and he published this very good review of many different models of and theories of consciousness. And so here I only highlighted a few of the most prominent of such theories. What's interesting about these theories is that they are not necessarily contradictory. In fact, Gradiano has proposed, he has suggested a model in which he makes several theories work together. So the attention schema, the global workspace, higher order thought, and illusionist theories, all of that working together. And we can expect more, well, in fact, the talk that was just before was talking about, unifying models of consciousness, so we can expect more of such endeavors in the future. But what's very interesting is that all of these theories of consciousness, they are based on computation or information, which leads us to cybernetic metaphysics. So when I say cybernetics, I mean it in a way that Gualtiero Piccinini introduced in this paper in which he analyzes the difference between computation and information. It's just that information theory and computation theory, historically, they have appeared together, and they are used in the same technology, so they are often confused, and so they are very related notions, although there are many differences between the two. But so just to refer to information and computation theory, it's useful to talk about cybernetics. And so in cybernetics metaphysics, basically, we endorse the it from bit view of the world, where reality is seen as a natural source of information. And this is a view that we find in many different ways, defended by different authors in different contexts. Basically, when we consider the world as being made from bits, then we see bodies and brains are as hardware or wetware, and mind as software, which gives this hope of having a unified framework for mind and body, right? But it's not that easy, because we can understand information or computation in many different ways. And I will just highlight a difference between two very different approaches to information. One is more pragmatic, the other one is more idealist. So if you want to be pragmatic about information, you will say that information is merely this linguistic commodity which allows us to formulate scientific hypotheses and knowledge. And this will correspond to the kind of information that Shannon was describing in his paper. So he says we don't need meaning in order to define information. On the other hand, you can see information from a more idealist standpoint, and then you will consider that everything, including qualia, is made of information. Qualia information, so for instance, then you can be like Nick Bostrom and believe that we are in a simulation. Obviously, if we are in a simulation, then everything is made of information, so everything including qualia and meaning. If meaning is made of information, then you need a semantic definition of information. So that's really not easy, and I'm not going to solve this issue here, but I just wanted to highlight it. But what cybernetics has brought it's to consciousness is, like I was saying, this hope of a unified framework. And there's mainly also this concept of layers of abstractions and of virtuality, which offers some answers to this old puzzle between immaterial minds and physical bodies. So everyone who knows a bit about computer science is familiar with this view of layers of abstraction, where it goes from hardware to OS and applications, software. And let's illustrate this with color, right? Because even with computers, color is always a useful concept to illustrate phenomenal experience. In the physical layer of a computer, you will see electronic circuits running this physical information processing. But this actually corresponds to, for instance, in machine code layer, to color code. And this, in turn, will lead you to see the color red on your user interface. So you have these different layers coexisting simultaneously. And we find a similar concept in the theory of vision. So, for instance, David Marr proposed this decomposition in several levels of vision in the 80s. It's a useful concept. Where this is leading us when it comes to phenomenal experience is obviously the fact that, well, you know, on the physical level, then you have observable, concrete information being processed, and this is simultaneously on other readings, other layers of abstraction. This is implementing information. This is implementing abstract information processing layers, and so phenomenal experience is not observable because it is virtual. It is lawfully implemented by the physical layer, yet it is not observable directly. It is only observable from the point of view of the program being executed, right? So this is a view, like conceiving of phenomenal experience as virtual. It's a view that allows to think of a reconciliation between physicalism and phenomenalism. On the one hand, the physicalist needs to concede the existence of phenomenal states and properties, natural phenomena constitutive of reality, yet which are not physical. And on the other hand, the phenomenalist will concede the primacy of the physical layer, especially for scientific investigation. So this view of the phenomenal as virtual is an underlying implicit assumption which is compatible with all current information-based theories of consciousness. It's not something that is claimed, but it's something that you can read between the lines. And under this view, artificial consciousness is possible in other physical substrates insofar as their information processing results in the implementation of a virtual layer. But it doesn't mean that we have solved the hard problem. It doesn't mean that we have filled the explanatory gap. Namely, as we were saying before, we need a more careful investigation on the very nature of information. We also need a better explanation of how different layers are related, how many layers there are. We need to identify clearly which abstract algorithms are implementing a virtual layer. So the cybernetic framework, the information-based theories of consciousness, they still have to answer to many, many problems. But they offer more granularity and specificity to analyze the problem. And more importantly, they are still susceptible to epiphenomenalism. So the classic definition of which being that the possession or absence of qualia makes no difference to the physical world, which can be simplified in saying that phenomenal zombies are possible. In the cybernetic framework, when we consider that the phenomenal layer is this virtual reality, then it would mean that the phenomenal layer makes no difference to the physical layer, and that operations in the physical layer are unaffected by the presence or absence of a phenomenal layer. The bleak implication of this being that our best scientific theories, being built empirically and validated through objective measurements, can never prove the existence of subjective phenomenal states which are not observable or measurable. So we could argue a lot about epiphenomenalism, but it's there. Anyway, so now we've laid many pieces of a very complex puzzle, and now we will try to assemble them. So where does it lead us? Well, first of all, it sets two different goals for artificial consciousness. On one hand, you can aim for strong artificial consciousness, which would be phenomenal, which would have phenomenal experience. Or you can aim for a weaker version of artificial consciousness, which would just be functional consciousness. So it would cover several functions of consciousness, such as self-awareness and imagination, things like that, long-term memory, maybe even functional versions of feelings, all of that. As we have seen, if phenomenal zombies are possible, then it means that a weak, like a functional consciousness, artificial consciousness, can be fully indistinguishable from its strong artificial consciousness equivalent, from the phenomenal version. On the other hand, if epiphenomenalism is wrong, then a fully indistinguishable weak artificial consciousness is not possible because the presence of a phenomenal experience makes a difference in the physical layer. However, may we stress that virtual properties and states don't seem epiphenomenal because they correlate with a specific physical implementation. So there is good hope that epiphenomenalism is wrong. So on one hand, we can have and aim for a strong artificial consciousness if the world, including qualia, is made of information. For instance, if we live in a simulation. If epiphenomenalism is wrong, and okay, that's many hypotheticals, but it's not completely implausible. On the other hand, we should only aim for weak artificial consciousness if qualia are not information, if information is mainly syntactic, then we can at best mimic the functions of consciousness, but never reach phenomenal consciousness. So, what about current artificial systems? Are they conscious? Well, if strong artificial consciousness is a possibility, then they might already be proto-conscious in certain ways, because they would just naturally implement for instance, the semantic equivalent and the virtual layers associated with, for instance, just text processing. On the other hand, if only weak artificial consciousness is possible, qualia are not information, then, well, we can say that they already possess some functions of conscious activity, such as language. But more importantly, we should stress that electronic computers, they don't have the same physical configurations as humans. They're not programmed for pain and pleasure. They don't have organic functions, no interoception, no homeostasis, etc., etc. So even if they had phenomenal experience, they wouldn't have the same experience as we do. And again, at best, they would be proto-conscious right now. So, yeah, so should we attempt to build conscious artifacts? Well, that's 4 reasons why yes. Because we often have the other arguments. So I just wanted to give 4 reasons why. Yes, because it will help us, artificial information processing systems are simply just a useful tool and model to test and advance scientific knowledge. And also it's safe to assume that they don't feel pain right now, but by investigating phenomenal properties, we can make sure they don't. And for those who are concerned with existential threats, well, those come from malicious AI and their use, regardless of whether they're conscious or not. So current challenges for artificial consciousness is more to work out a symbiosis between humans and artifacts, to implement multimodality, would be to give them a sense of self-awareness in order also to build moral values, and more importantly, not to mislead human users when they are interacting with weak artificial consciousness. Thank you.